The Fast and the Furious is an American media franchise including a series of action films produced by Neal H. Moritz, which center on illegal street racing and heists, and various other media portraying the characters and situations from the films. Distributed by Universal Pictures, the series was established with the 2001 film titled The Fast and the Furious. It has since been followed by 5 sequels, 2 short films that tie into the series, and a related video game series. Having earned $2.3 billion as of October 22, 2013 at the worldwide box office, it has become Universal Studios' biggest franchise of all time. Films: The Fast and the Furious. The film is loosely based on a magazine article, titled Racer X, about street clubs that race Japanese cars late at night. Elite street racer and ex-convict Dominic Toretto and his crew, Jesse, Leon, Vince and Dominic's girlfriend Letty Ortiz, are under suspicion of stealing expensive electronic equipment. Brian O'Connor is an undercover police officer who attempts to find out who exactly is stealing the equipment. He worked for FBI agent Bilkins and LAPD officer Tanner. Falling for Dominic's younger sister, Mia Toretto, Brian later confesses to her his status as an undercover cop and convinces her to come with him to save her brother and his friends from the truck drivers, who have now armed themselves to combat the robberies. He tracks Dominic's location by triangulating his cell phone signal and they arrive at the hijacking in progress to find Letty, badly injured at the car accident, and Vince critically wounded, having lacerated his arm and been shot by the truck driver. Brian and Mia work together with Dominic, Leon and Letty to rescue Vince. Brian then makes the difficult decision to blow his cover to the crew by phoning in for a medevac. The revelation enrages Dominic, but he contains himself and flees with Leon, Letty and Mia as the medevac arrives for Vince. Brian follows Dominic to his house and holds him at gunpoint to prevent him from fleeing. Jesse arrives shortly afterwards, apologizing for his actions at Race Wars and pleading for Dominic's help with Johnny Tran. Moments later, Tran and his cousin Lance Nguyen perform a drive-by shooting, killing Jesse. Brian and Dominic chase them, with Dominic driving his late father's modified 1970 Dodge Charger. Dominic forces Lance's motorcycle off the road, severely injuring him, while Brian shoots and kills Tran. Afterwards, Brian and Dominic engage in an impromptu street race, narrowly avoiding a passing train. Dominic collides with a semi-truck and rolls his car twice, injuring himself, and rendering the Charger undrivable. Instead of arresting him, Brian hands over the keys to his Supra and lets Dominic escape, using the line "I owe you a 10-second car." After the credits, Dominic is seen driving through Baja California, Mexico in a 1970 Chevrolet SS. Too Fast Too Furious. Watched by undercover customs agent Monica Fuentes, Brian is caught by U.S. customs agents and is given a deal by agents Bilkins and Markham to go undercover and try to bring down drug lord Carter Veron in exchange for the erasure of his criminal record. Brian agrees but only if he is given permission to choose his partner, refusing to partner with the agent assigned to watch him. Brian heads home to Barstow, California, where he recruits Roman Pierce, a childhood friend of Brian who had served jail time and is under house arrest, to help him. Pierce agrees, but only for the same deal Brian was offered, and with the help of Monica, Brian and Roman work together to take down Veron. After acquiring confiscated vehicles and being hired by Veron as his drivers, the duo return to a customs FBI hideout, where Roman confronts Markham over the latter's interference with the mission. After the situation is cooled down, Brian tells Bilkins and Markham that Veron plans to smuggle the money into his private jet and fly off, but also suspects something wrong with Monica's role in the mission. Sometime later, Brian and Roman race 2 other would-be Veron drivers for their cars and begin to devise a personal backup plan if the operation goes awry. Roman confronts Brian about his attraction to Monica and the constant threat of Veron's men. On the day of the mission, Brian and Roman begin transporting duffel bags of Veron's money, with Enrique and Roberto riding along. Before the 15-minute window is set, the detective in charge, Whitworth, decides to call on the police to move in for the arrest, resulting in a high-speed chase across the city. The duo lead the police to a warehouse, where a scramble by dozens of street racers disorient the police. Following the scramble, police managed to pull over the Evo and the Eclipse, only to find out that they were driven by two members of Brian's new crew, Tej Parker and Suki, respectively. As Brian approaches the destination point, Enrique tells him to make a detour away from the airfield. Meanwhile, Roman gets rid of Roberto by using an improvised ejector seat powered by nitrous oxide. At the airfield, customs agents have Verwon's plane and convoy surrounded, only to discover they are duped into a decoy maneuver while Verwon is at a boat yard several miles away. As he knew Monica was an undercover agent, he gave her the wrong information on the destination point and plans to use her as leverage. When Brian arrives at the intended drop-off point, Enrique prepares to kill him when Roman suddenly appears and the both of them dispatch of Enrique. Verwon makes his escape aboard his private yacht, but Brian and Roman use the Camaro and drive off a ramp at high speed, crashing on top of the yacht. The duo manage to apprehend Verwon and save Monica. With their crimes pardoned, Brian and Roman ponder on what to do next other than to settle in Miami when Brian mentions starting a garage. Roman asks how they would afford that and Brian reveals that he took some of the money, as Roman also reveals that his pockets aren't empty, having taken money for himself. The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift. After totaling his car in an illegal street race, Sean Boswell is sent to live with his father, who is stationed as a U.S. Navy officer in Tokyo, Japan, to avoid juvie or even jail. While in school, he befriends Twinkie, a military brat, who introduces him to the world of drift racing in Japan. Though forbidden to drive, he decides to race against Takashi, also known as DK, who has ties to the Yakuza. He borrows a Nissan Silvia from Han Solo, now a business partner to Takashi, and loses, totaling the car because of his lack of knowledge of drifting, racing that involves dangerous hairpin turns. To repay his debt for the car he destroyed, Sean must work for Han. Later on, Han becomes friends with Sean and teaches the young racer how to drift. Takashi's uncle Kamata, the head of the Yakuza, admonishes Takashi for allowing Han to steal from him. Takashi confronts Han, Sean and Neal H, whereupon they flee. During the chase, Han is killed in an accident in his Vilside Mazda RX-7 and Takashi, Sean and his father become involved in an armed standoff which is resolved by Neal H agreeing to leave with Takashi. Twinkie provides his saved money to Sean to make up for Han's stolen money, which Sean returns to Kamata. Sean proposes a race against Takashi to determine who must leave Tokyo. Sean and Han's friends then build a Ford Mustang 67, with a Nissan Skyline inline-6 engine, and other spare parts, and Sean wins the race. Later, Sean is challenged by an unnamed driver, Dominic Toretto. Fast and Furious. Dominic and his new crew are hijacking fuel tankers in the Dominican Republic. Dominic begins to suspect the trail is too hot and leaves Letty behind in order to protect her from harm. Several weeks later, in Panama City, Dominic gets a call from Mia, who tells him that Letty has been murdered by Phoenix Calderon, after getting into a near-fatal car accident. Dominic heads back to Los Angeles to examine Letty's crash and finds traces of nitromethane. He then goes to the only car mechanic that uses nitromethane and coerces him into giving him the name David Park, the man who ordered the fuel. Meanwhile, FBI agent Brian O'Connor is trying to track down a drug dealer named Arturo Braga. His search leads him to David Park. Dominic arrives at Park's apartment first and hangs him out of the window by his ankles before letting go. Brian, who was also on his way to Park's place, saves Park, who now becomes the FBI's new informant. Park gets Brian into a street race through Los Angeles. Brian selects a modified Nissan Skyline GTR 34 from the impound lot. Dominic also shows up to race in his modified 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle. Giselle Yashar, the liaison for Braga, reveals that the winner will become the last driver on a team that traffics heroin between the United States-Mexico border. Dominic wins by bumping Brian's car, making him lose control. Brian uses his power as an FBI agent to arrest another driver, Dwight Mueller, and takes his place on the team. The following day, the team meets one of the Braga's men. they drive across the border using underground tunnels to avoid detection. Brian had prior knowledge that, after the heroin was delivered, Brugger ordered the drivers to be killed. However, it was revealed to Dominic from Phoenix that he killed Letty, and after a tense standoff, Dominic detonates his car with nitrous to distract Brugger's men, and Brian hijacks a Hummer with $60 million worth of heroin. Both Dominic and Brian drive back to Los Angeles and hide the heroin in a police impound lot, where Brian picks up a modified Subaru Impreza WRX STI. Later on, Dominic finds out Brian was the last person to contact Letty, which results in him being attacked by Dominic until he learns Letty was working undercover for Brian, tracking down Brugger in exchange for clearing Dominic's name. Brian tells his superiors that in exchange for Dominic's pardon, he will lure Brugger into a trap, forcing him to personally show up to exchange money for the heroin. At the drop site, however, Ramon Campos, the man who claims to be Brugger, is revealed as a decoy, and Campos, the real Brugger, escapes and flees to Mexico. Brian and Dominic travel to Mexico on their own to catch Brugger. They find him at a church and apprehend him. As Brugger's henchmen come down to rescue their leader, Brian and Dominic drive through the underground tunnels back to the United States. When some of Brugger's men are killed, Brian crashes his car and is injured after being T-boned by Phoenix at the end of the tunnel. Before Phoenix can kill Brian, Dominic, who survived the explosion and exchanged his 1970 Dodge Charger with a 1973 Chevrolet Camaro, drives into and kills Phoenix. As police and helicopters start streaming to the crash site on the USA side, Brian tells Dominic to leave, but Dominic refuses, saying he's tired of running. Despite Brian's request for clemency, the judge sentences Dominic to 25 years to life. Dominic boards a prison bus that will take him to Lompoc Penitentiary, and as the bus drives down the road, Brian and Mia, along with Leo and Santos, arrive in their cars to intercept it. Fast 5. Following the events of Fast and Furious, when Dominic is being transported to a U.S. prison, Mia and Brian lead an assault on the bus, causing it to crash and free Dominic. While authorities search for them, the trio escape to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Awaiting Dominic's arrival, Mia and Brian join their friend Vince and other participants on a job to steal 3 cars from a train. The job goes awry when Brian and Mia discover the train is carrying DEA agents and that the cars are seized property. When Dominic arrives with the rest of the participants, he realizes that one of them, Z, is only interested in stealing 1 car, the Ford GT40. Dominic has Mia steal the car herself, while Brian and Dominic fight Z and his henchmen, with Z killing the DEA agents assigned to the vehicles. Dominic and Brian are captured and brought to crime lord Hernan Reyes, the owner of the cars and Z's boss, who orders the pair be interrogated to discover the location of the car. However, they manage to escape and retreat to their safe house. Dominic, Brian, and Mia are blamed for the murder of the DEA agents, and USDSS agent Luke Hobbs and his team arrive in Rio to capture him. While Brian, Dominic and Mia examine the car to discover its importance, Vince arrives and is revealed to be working for Reyes when he removes a computer chip from the car. Dominic forces Vince to leave and, after investigating the chip, Brian discovers it contains details of Reyes' criminal empire, including the locations of $100 million in cash, and plan on stealing Reyes' money to start a new life. The trio organize a team to perform the heist, recruiting Han, Roman, Tej, Leo, Santos, Giselle and Vince. Hobbs and his team eventually find and arrest Dominic, Mia, Brian and Vince. While transporting them to an airport for extradition to the United States, the convoy is attacked by Reyes' men, killing Hobbs' team and Vince. Hobbs is saved by Dominic, Brian and Mia as they fight back against Reyes' men and escape. Wanting revenge for their murdered team, Hobbs and Elena Neves agree to help with the heist. The gang breaks into the police station where Reyes' money is kept and tear the vault from the building using their cars, dragging it through the city with police in pursuit. Believing they cannot outrun the police, Dominic makes Brian continue on without him while he attacks the police and the pursuing Reyes, using the vault attached to his car to smash their vehicles. Brian returns to kill Z, while Reyes is badly injured by Dominic's assault. Hobbs arrives on the scene and executes Reyes. Hobbs refuses to let the pair go free, but unwilling to arrest the team, agrees to give them a 24-hour head start to escape. The gang split Reyes' money, with Dominic leaving Vince's share to his family, and they go their separate ways. In a post-credits scene, Hobbs is given a special file by Agent Monica Fuentes concerning the hijacking of a military convoy in Berlin. In the file, Hobbs discovers a recent photo of Letty, who was presumed deceased, revealing she survived the events of Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious 6. Following their successful Rio heist, Dominic Toretto and his crew of professional criminals have retired around the world. Dominic lives with Elena, his sister Mia and Brian O'Connor have had a son, Jack. Giselle and Han have moved to Hong Kong and Roman and Tej live in luxury. Diplomatic Security Service agent Luke Hobbs and his partner Riley Hicks investigate the destruction of a Russian military convoy, believing former British Special Forces soldier Owen Shaw and his crew are responsible. Hobbs tracks down Dominic and requests his help in bringing Shaw down. Dominic agrees when Hobbs presents him with a photo of Dominic's former girlfriend Letty Ortiz, whom he thought was dead. Dominic gathers his crew together and they accept the mission in exchange for full amnesty for their past crimes, which will allow them to return home to the United States. Mia and Elena remain with Jack. The crew are led to Shaw's London hideout by one of his henchmen, but it is revealed to be a trap intended to distract the crew and police while Shaw's crew performs a heist elsewhere. Shaw flees by car, detonating his hideout behind him and disabling most of the police, leaving Dominic, Brian, Roman, Tej, Han, Giselle, Hobbs and Riley to pursue him. Letty arrives to help Shaw, and shoots Dominic without hesitation before escaping. Back at their headquarters, Hobbs tells Dominic's crew that Shaw is stealing components to create a nightshade device which can disable power in an entire region. He intends to sell it to the highest bidder. Meanwhile, Shaw's investigation into the opposing crew reveals Letty's relationship with Dominic, but she is revealed to be suffering from amnesia. Roman, Han, Giselle, and Riley investigate a subordinate of Shaw who reveals Shaw's connection to Arturo Briga, a drug lord imprisoned by Brian. Brian returns to the United States as a prisoner to gain access to Briga. Briga reveals that Brian will only get close to Shaw if Shaw allows it, and discloses how Letty survived the explosion that was thought to have killed her. Shaw went to finish her off but after learning that she had no memory, he took her in. Aided by a former ally in the FBI, Brian is released from prison. In London, Dominic races Letty in a street racing competition. Afterwards, the pair talk and Dominic returns her necklace. When she leaves, Shaw arrives and offers to let Dominic and his crew walk away without harm, but Dominic refuses to leave without Letty. Shaw tries to threaten Dominic by a laser-aimed gunman. Hobbs also aims at Shaw. Dominic says 2-bit government hack, repeating what Shaw called him earlier. Shaw then leaves without further incident. Tej tracks Shaw's next attack to a NATO Spanish military base. Shaw and his crew assault a military convoy carrying a computer chip to complete the nightshade device. Dominic and his crew interfere, destroying the convoy while Shaw, accompanied by Letty, commandeers a tank and begins destroying cars along the highway. Roman manages to anchor his car to the tank, which Brian then pushes over a bridge, flipping the tank. Letty is thrown from the tank and Dominic risks his life to save her from falling to her death. In the aftermath, Shaw and his men are captured, but he reveals that he has kidnapped Mia. The crew are forced to release Shaw, and Riley leaves with him. Letty chooses to remain with Dom. Shaw and his crew board a large aircraft while it is in motion on a runway while Dominic and his crew give chase. Dominic, Letty, Brian, and Hobbs board the craft. Brian rescues Mia and they escape using the car on board. The plane attempts to take off but is held down by excess weight as Han, Giselle, Roman, Tej, Brian, and Mia tether the plane to their vehicles. Giselle sacrifices herself to save Han. Letty kills Riley and both she and Hobbs leap to safety, but Dominic pursues Shaw and the computer chips. Shaw is thrown from the plane as it crashes into the ground. Dom drives one of the remaining cars through the nose of the plane and reunites with his crew, giving the chip to Hobbs to secure their amnesty. In the aftermath, Dominic and his team return to the United States. Hobbs and Elena arrive to confirm the crew are free. Han is still reeling from Giselle's death and decides to head to Tokyo as part of their original plan to settle down there. Before Hobbs and Elena leave, Dominic states that Elena does not have to go, but she responds saying that this is his family and the police department is her family, accepting that he chose Letty over her. As Dominic's crew gather to share a meal, Dominic asks Letty if the gathering felt familiar. She answers no, but that it feels like home. The scene ends with Roman eating and Brian exclaiming, by house rules, that the former has to say grace mirroring Dom's role at the first family meal he attended some years before. In the post-credits scene, taking place during the events of the Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift, Han's death is revealed to have been caused by an unknown driver, Ian Shaw, who leaves Dom a threatening message and walks away. Fast and Furious 7. Fast and Furious 7 will follow the events of the Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift. James Wan will direct the seventh film, replacing Justin Lin, who had directed the previous 4 films. Vin Diesel, Dwayne Johnson, Michelle Rodriguez, Jordana Brewster, Therese Gibson, Ludacris, and Lucas Black will return to reprise their respective characters, along with Paul Walker, who passed away in a fatal car accident before filming was complete. Jason Statham, who made a cameo appearance in Fast and Furious 6, will portray the villain. Thai martial artist Tony Jaa, UFC fighter Ronda Rousey, Kurt Russell, Michael G. White, and Jim Enhancer will also join the cast. Filming commenced in September 2013, with the theatrical release originally slated for July 11, 2014. Universal Pictures halted production following the death of Paul Walker on November 30, 2013. On December 22, 2013, Vin Diesel revealed a new release date to be April 10, 2015, via his Facebook account, but was moved up to April 3, 2015. On April 15, 2014, it was confirmed that Paul Walker's brothers would be filling in for their brother. A statement on the film's Facebook page said, "We have resumed shooting and now welcome Paul unregistered trademark S brothers, Caleb and Cody, into our Fast family. Caleb and Cody are helping us complete some remaining action for their brother and fill in small gaps left in production. Having them on set has made us all feel that Paul is with us too." The statement also went on to say, Paul had already shot his dramatic scenes and most of his action for Fast and Furious 7, and unregistered trademark S among the strongest work of his career. Future, Vin Diesel indicated that he loves Fast and Furious 7. Dwayne Johnson has expressed interest in future films in the series and stated that there are plans for a spin-off film featuring his character Hobbs, but that the Hobbs spin-off would not be filmed or released until after the 7th film is released. Paul Walker had stated that an 8th film was guaranteed, with the studio also wanting 9th and 10th installments. However, his death had left an uncertain fate for the franchise. In June 2014 it was confirmed that Paul Walker's brother Cody will be a part of Fast and Furious 8 as a new character in the franchise. Short films, Turbocharged Prelude. Brian O'Connor packs his bags and leaves Los Angeles, before the LAPD gets a chance to arrest him for letting Dominic Toretto escape. While the FBI launch a national manhunt on him, Brian travels across Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, winning in every street race he participates in, with his red Mitsubishi 3000 GT. However, he is forced to ditch his car at a motel in Dallas when police officers are notified of his presence. When they collect the car, he manages to hitch a ride from an unknown woman, despite her knowing who he really is. She drops him at a used car lot, with him realizing she knows that he is a wanted man. There, he buys a green Nissan Skyline GTR 34. Later, collecting money from street races, he modifies the car with new rims and repaints it silver, with blue lightning vinyls on the sides, before traveling eastbound and winning more races on the way. Upon reaching Atlanta, Georgia, Brian heads south toward Miami, Florida, where he sees Slapjack's Toyota Supra and Orange Julius Mazda RX-7 before the screen reads "To be continued Euro." Los Bandoleros. Leo Tigo is in a Dominican Republic prison, ranting about corporations holding back the electric car and starting wars for oil. Meanwhile, on the streets, Rico Santos chats to an old man unable to find enough gas. Han Solo arrives and is collected from the airport by Cara Murtha and Marlo. They drive him back to Santos' house, where his Aunt Rubia is struggling with rising prices linked to the cost of gasoline and Dominic is working on his car. The team then enjoy a welcome meal with the family. After breaking Leo out of prison, they head to a club, where Han and Cara flirt, while Dominic meets up with local politician Elvis, who informs them of a window of opportunity to hijack a gasoline shipment. While relaxing at the club afterwards, Dominic is surprised by the arrival of Letty, who has tracked him from Mexico. The two drive together to the beach, where they rekindle their relationship. Chronology, actual, The Fast and the Furious, June 22, 2001, Turbocharged Prelude, June 3, 2003, Too Fast Too Furious, June 6, 2003, The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift, June 16, 2006, Los Bandoleros, July 28, 2009, Fast and Furious, April 3, 2009, Fast 5, April 20, 2011, Fast and Furious May 6, 2013, Fast and Furious April 7, 2015. Fictional chronology, although filmed and released in a different order, the films are in the following fictional chronological order. Pertaining to the plot events, The Fast and the Furious, June 22, 2001, Turbocharged Prelude, June 3, 2003, Too Fast Too Furious, June 6, 2003, Los Bandoleros, July 28, 2009, Fast and Furious, April 3, 2009, Fast 5, April 20, 2011, Fast and Furious May 6, 2013, The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift, June 16, 2006, Fast and Furious April 7, 2015. Characters, crew and other, reception, box office performance, critical reception, merchandising, video games. A film series has spawned several racing video games for various systems. The arcade game The Fast and the Furious was released by Raw Thrills in 2004. In 2006, the video game The Fast and the Furious was released for the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation Portable. Several games have all been released for iOS and are available on the iTunes App Store. For Android devices there is official version of Fast and Furious 6, the game. In 2013, Fast and Furious, Showdown was released for the PC, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, Wii U and Nintendo 3DS. Various cars, locations and characters from the series have also appeared in the Facebook game Car Town. Toys and model kits, Racing Champions released die-cast metal replicas of the film's cars in different scales from 1/18 to 1/64. Radio Shack sold Zip Zap's Micro SE versions of the cars in 2002. 1/24 scale plastic model kits of the Hero cars were manufactured by AMT Artel. Johnny Lightning under the JL Full Throttle brand released 1/64 and January 24 models of the cars from Tokyo Drift. These models were designed by discussed Hall of Fame designer Eric Chin. Greenlight also sold some cars from the second and fifth films, which are muscle cars and the Rio Police Charger. Related films, although not officially part of the Fast and the Furious film series, Sung Kang plays a character named Han in the film Better Luck Tomorrow, directed by Justin Lin, who also directed The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious, Fast 5 and Fast and Furious 6. In Fast 5, Giselle Yashar attributes Han's constant need to occupy his hands to him being a former smoker, an Easter egg reference according to Lin's DVD commentary. Similar films, Biker Boys, Talk, Need for Speed, see also, List of highest grossing films, references. External links, official website, The Fast and the Furious at the Internet Movie Database, Too Fast Too Furious at the Internet Movie Database, Fast and Furious at the Internet Movie Database, Fast 5 at the Internet Movie Database, Fast and Furious 6 at the Internet Movie Database, Fast and Furious 7 at the Internet Movie Database, The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift at the Internet Movie Database,